Parents of Reddit, what is most fucked up secret you are hiding from your children? I am the child, but my dad waited till I am grown up to tell me that my mom gave me a lot of sleeping pills when I was a little child so she could leave me alone at home to maintain her relationship with her lover while my dad was working in another country. That cleared up many things. People are brutal. Wow, sorry man. Actually, same thing happened to my kids. My ex would do this when I worked graveyards so they wouldn't hear her bringing home guys. That we are divorced. Years before they came along, spouse and I decided it wasn't working out and got divorced. Years later, things still weren't working out fantastically for both of us, so we got back together. Never did get around to getting remarried though. I'm not the parent, I'm the child, but my family kept it a secret that my brother was a child molester and that my grandpa had raped my mother and threatened to kill us grandkids. I found out because I told my sister that my brother had molested me and she told me about the rest. We were raised having a relationship with them like they were normal human beings. It's absolutely disgusting. My uncle molested all 3 of his sisters and everyone acts like it's no big deal. It's just not talked about at all. I don't speak to him because my father told me when I was very young to never be in a room alone with him, but also because he's an insufferable C*** who thinks he's better than everyone. My parents told me my sister is adopted. They didn't tell her. She's 34. BTW help, what do I do? Buy the whole family DNA test kits for Christmas and watch the world burn. Savage. But actually intrigued on how that will go. That we weren't actually visiting daddy at his work. It's a secure psychiatric ward where he's been since she was 3 months old. I'm curious how your relationship started with the father. Sounds like an interesting story. We met a few years before. He always had issues, but so did I, and we were madly in love. Things were going well for a while for both of us until I got pregnant. His mental health got worse and worse until he got sectioned and ended up where he is now. Not really fed up, but still a big secret. I've been living 5.5 hours away from my wife and daughter for the past 11 months. Every time I talk to my daughter she asks when am I coming home? Well, little does she know that next Friday, when her and her mom come for what she thinks is just a weekend visit, they are actually coming to pick me up for good. That's as amazing. I hope she'll never have to ask that again. My 3-year-old is an absolute miracle. Her birth mom, my wife's sister, didn't want her. Basically tried for an intentional miscarriage via massive drinking and drug use. Born 10 weeks premature, she shouldn't even be alive by most medical estimations, yet here she is. Slight developmental setbacks, but she is solidly inside the bell curve. Her socialization is on point, and she should start school on time. She will know none of this until she is in her teens, most likely. I'm so grateful for this impossible little person. I secretly bought my son after my wife lost our own child during birth. It's quite easy in my country considering there's a lot of poor parents willing to give away their children. My wife regained consciousness after 4 days. Neither her nor my son know this. My daughter knows that her grandparents are getting a divorce. She doesn't know that it's because grandpa, 74, decided to knock up a 23-year-old. We will talk about it once she's older, but I don't want to normalize that relationship for a preadolescent. My son was planned, but after separating from his father when my son was 8 months old and having basically nowhere to go / no way to actually take care of us on our own, many times I thought about the possibility of dropping him off at the hospital and skipping town. I never did, and he is 8 now, and we are very happy. I just want to say this is a completely normal thought, but it's your actions that count. We all have thoughts we aren't proud of, but you persevered and that's what matters. Don't feel ashamed of what you didn't do. Be proud of what you did. My father molested my daughter. She suppressed the hell out of it. We are still trying to figure out how to break this to her. We cut off all contact with them, but my mother feels that this is something that shouldn't affect their relationship if my daughter doesn't actually remember the incident. I don't agree at all, but that doesn't stop my mother from trying to contact us. She comes from an age when women just suffered and said nothing about it, and so feels that we should just accept my father's apology and move on. It's overall a very confusing situation that we, my husband and I, have trouble understanding how to handle. I have a copy of Grand Theft Auto hidden behind some books on a shelf. The perfect hiding place. Impressive. I'm the child, but my grandma was so mad at my mom dating young and getting pregnant that she lost her first 2 pregnancies because my grandma made her brothers beat my mom until she had miscarriages. It hurts my heart. Edit. I know some people were curious for details, so here ya go. My grandma's brothers. My mom was an only child. It was communist Albania at the time. My grandma is lovely now, and it's a shame that she was abusive to my mom during her adolescence. My mom, I believe, suffers from some form of bipolar disorder or PTSD and result from the abuse and subsequently abused my brothers and I. It was like walking on eggshells my whole childhood. Anything I did wrong ended up with me being hit. One of my brothers was the worst to me, would choke me out for making him lag on Call of Duty, and my mom and dad were working all day to support us and never really intervened. Even when they noticed me self-harming and depressed, I got punished and beat because my life in comparison was nothing to complain about. It took me a year in therapy to come to terms with I shouldn't devalue my pain because my parents have been through worse. After some time healing and forgiving, we are all okay with one another. I avoid my brother a bunch still. My anxieties/PTSD became a little too much for me to handle after living with them for 20 years, so I moved across the country. Despite all the bullshit my family has been through, time really did heal most wounds and we all do love each other. There's more respect now than there's ever been. My mom has her first at 16, then 18, and me at 21. She understandably feels like she lost most of her childhood being abused and then raising kids. Also, stop telling me to hurt my grandma. I understand my mom's story is painful, but they're a healthy relationship. They love each other. My mom is supporting my grandma financially, and that happened about 30 years ago. My grandma was an amazing guardian to me and often saved me from my mom/brother's abuse. F your grandma and your uncles. Not a parent but a child. This last Christmas I found out that not only was my mom had already been previously married and divorced, but my dad had a kid before he married my mom. So I have a half brother or sister that I have never met. The real kicker was I found it out from my new sister-in-law, who had someone did some digging, found out, assumed that I must already know, and brought it up out of the blue on Christmas Eve while we were baking cookies. Watch our other videos and subscribe cause you not a scrub.